tomorrow's his funeral. I thought maybe we could run. Power trip. I'm not hearing good.
Sweet. Line. And I'm not talking about the lines at the Chick-fil-A. Stick around. We're going to talk about line and demystify some stuff. All that right now. Tackle Shop Live. Jeff Riddle, how you doing? Mike Myers. Oh, hi, Hayer. Mike Hayer, how are you doing? Sorry, bud. Mike Myers, I don't know what I was thinking.
That's
Sean Lagerman. Scott Luckoff, what do you say, bud? Daniel Henson, what's happening? Mark, how you doing?
That's 3D Danny.
3D Danny.
Up in the house.
Kevin Carpenter, how you? Joseph, what's up? Barry Leffler. Mike Barr, how you doing, Mike? Hey, where you been? Froze up down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guarantee.
Mike doesn't travel well during the bomb cyclone.
I guarantee. Keith Howard, how you, buddy? Mark Snyder, Andre, Robert Donahue. Man, good to see you guys. Johnny Kopp, everybody. John Wernick, how you doing, bud? I hope you're feeling better. Keep the fight up, brother. We're all for you, pal. And Jack Hinkle.
Jack Hinkle's in the house.
Jack Hinkle. Man, we got a great show for you guys tonight.
We do.
One of the most unbelievable topics that you can possibly talk about is line, and we're going to get into that today and break it down. And we're going to tell you what we do with line. We're not going to, try to tell you guys what to do with line. We're just going to try to help people who really don't know about these different lines, what they are, what they're used for, some of the stuff we use it for, and then you can kind of take the line and put it on your rods as you need. And we're definitely going to talk about that tonight.
We're going deep online.
We're going deep online, very, very deep online. We're going to talk about some knots and some things there. So, hang on for that in just a second. But
we also have some exciting new product.
We got some great product we're going to talk about.
We also have live tournament fishing back in our lives.
Yes.
There's only 99 days left, so don't miss any of them.
Yep. So for all you guys that don't know, my name is Mike Acord. This is George Acord. Corbin is working tonight. He can't make it. And behind the camera is cameraman Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Doing good. How's it going, everybody?
Going great, buddy. As always, Nick's here. He runs the camera and does all that kind of crazy stuff for us. And he's always a good influencer. He kind of puts some stuff in there, man.
Yeah, he's got some key input.
Nick's got some game.
Hey, thanks, guys.
So we drag Nick out in the water and fish with take him fishing, and we do whatever. And Nick's always to ride along. He just jumps up and goes.
He's ready.
He's ready.
Well, you guys know something that popped out at me today is George is walking with a little hop in his step today. And I know why.
I got a hiccup in my giddy up.
Because it's tournament time.
It is.
And he's all pumped up.
It is.
Let's you know what?
I'm excited.
Let's bust right into that right now. We're going to do some tournament talk. Hey, we love tournaments. So for you guys that don't want to hear it, I'm sorry, just plug your ears, but
yeah,
we love it. We love tournaments. And like I said, when you guys listen to this show, we talk about tournament talk, but it always sparks some kind of conversation on a technique or something. And it's always good to listen to it Well, I noticed today, George, when I was watching, that it was a bunch of old school stuff that they were singing out there. The ball and chain, the old Carolina rig was flying around.
Yeah.
Paddle tail worms,
lizards.
Yeah, lizards. I mean, all kinds of stuff they were throwing that was old school, and it was neat to see that. So what's going on? What tournament are we talking about here, and what's going on
Well,
now?
we're going to talk about 2 tournaments tonight. We're going to talk about the MLF Pro Circuit, formerly the FLW Tour, and now it's called the MLF Pro Circuit. This is where they weigh in their fish.
Yep.
5.
Yep. And our buddy who was at our show, our Bass Fest, Gray Buck is there. Fishing.
Gray Buck is in the house.
Yeah.
Cody Pike is in the house.
Yeah, Cody Pike.
And they also draw some of their 2 tour pros, the guys that fish the Bass Pro Tour. Now, the Bass Pro Tour is where they weigh them all.
Yeah, weigh everything.
You know, they have their cut weight and they weigh them all.
Catch and release kind of
same house, different.
I saw Randy Howe weighing in today.
That's like their elite level. So I mean, you got 2 tour pros like Big Bass Bobby Lane, who's in the top 30. You've got Randy Howe, who's in the bottom 30. You got Skeet Reese, who's in the middle 30.
Yeah.
I mean, so you got these guys. That's day 1.
Yeah.
You can't win a tour event on day 1.
No.
But you can lose it.
Yeah.
So these guys, even if they didn't have the biggest weight, they're still in the mix. So keep that in mind when you're reviewing the standings, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you look at the Elite Series and the Major League Fishing Pro Tour, which we're talking about now, and the Bass Pro Tour, you have roughly 100 days of live and 8 hours a day. So we have like 800 hours of live to watch. Okay. We got 1 day in. So there's 792 hours to go. So if you missed 8,
that's a good thing because
you're not getting it back.
That's a good thing because the NFL football season is coming to an end, and George's going to be miserable.
Right. So
he's going to be miserable.
When you're reviewing your data program on your phone, consider the fact that there's 792 more hours of streaming to come your way. Okay.
Yeah.
So MLF Pro Circuit, Sam Rayburn, and a couple things are interesting here. So Sam Rayburn is in a stage of like an early pre-spawn. So you have fish that are staging. That's why you saw so many anglers offshore today.
Yeah.
You have a slightly falling lake, which is pulling some fish out. So, different parts of the country, different periods in the life cycle of the bass. So up here where we live in the Northeast, we're in the dead of winter, but we can take notes and learn things from this tournament that actually in probably
a month.
It could be 4, 5, 6 weeks. We're going to be right in this zone, right?
Yeah.
So, sharpen your pencil, take some notes. So what we have just a quick little rundown here. Sam Rayburn, early pre-spawn. The lake is down.
Dropping, baby.
Level. And there is a huge...
It's like the worst thing, man.
There's a big thing that's going on here. And again, we can learn from this. There's a big absence of grass. Okay, now
75% of the grass is gone.
And the reason for that is that last year the lake was about 10 feet higher than it is now.
Yep, the sediment killed it all out.
Well, the lack of sunlight.
Dirty. Lake was dirty, like they said.
Lake was dirty.
It was like 3/4 of the year
muddy. The lack of sunlight. The grass experienced a die-off.
There is some patches of grass
there
that
is.
the guys are fishing. And
they're getting a lot of pressure.
That's going to be exciting to see. Yeah.
They're getting a lot of pressure. And so that's the stage. The stage is set, right? Stage is set. So, let's pay attention and let's do some learning here. And what do we see today? Well, Mike kind of...
Here's to you, buddy.
Mike kind of gave you a tip-off there. So today we saw offshore brush. A lot of times in the case of planted brush piles.
Yeah.
We saw Carolina rig.
Carolina rig.
Played heavy.
Yep.
We saw the old school lizard.
Yep.
Play heavy.
Yep.
We saw the wobblehead.
Yep.
Play heavy. These are all great ways to present a bait slowly in that offshore because they're not chasing real good.
You can see those guys fishing that stuff too, especially the wobblehead. They were just slow reeling that thing.
Well, and
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and you didn't see the crankbait play real hard. Now I have a feeling at the end of the day,
that one dude was catching them on a crankbait.
You didn't see it play real hard though.
Uh-uh.
I mean,
Nope.
At the end of the day, a lot of the people at the weigh-in commented on how well, I caught 2 fish at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I caught 4 fish in the last 15 minutes. So that bite turned on late.
Yep.
And they probably caught a lot of their fish cranking late.
Yeah.
If the fish got active. I can guarantee you one thing: if old Keith Combs would have been in the field, he'd have had a 6XD on.
Oh, he'd been yanking some hogs out.
Because that's his pond and that's his gig.
Oh, don't worry, he'd have done well.
Yeah, he would have done well. So here's where we're at. We're just gonna randomly go down through the field here with a couple of field notes.
Yeah.
First place is Josh Butler with 1915. And he pretty much paced the field on that one.
There's a couple big bags.
There is. Yeah. If you jump down to 5th place, you have Michael Neal. Of course, he won the what's that called? The title event last year.
Yeah.
300,000.
Yeah.
Went out and bought him a combine.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
18.7.
How badass is that, man? What are you going to do with your money? I'm not going to Disney World. I'm buying a combine.
Yeah. Well, you got, there's some big time farmers.
Yeah,
now, 4th place, right ahead of him from Finleyville, Pennsylvania, is Matt Becker.
Matt Becker.
18.8.
He's a hell of a sticks.
He is.
He is, man. He can catch him.
On the big northern water and the southern.
He's going to win one of these days.
Oh, he's a hammer.
He's going to win one of these days.
I mean, he's good up north. He's good down. He's good on all.
Yeah. What's this, like his 5th, 6th year, 7th year?
It's kind of like if you're a really good fisherman, you can fish.
Yeah.
All the venues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I really like 12th place. This guy is a veteran, Dickie Newberry. They did a phenomenal article on him a few months ago on.
He's a local on that.
Yo-yo. Yo-yo in a trap. They
what
did
place is he in?
If you look up if you look him up on FLW, there's a tremendous article on him talking about yo-yo in a trap.
Yeah.
And his technique for that.
Yeah.
But he's fished 235 pro events. Mm-hmm. He's qualified for the Redman All-American or the BFL or whatever the hell they call it today.
BFL.
All-American.
Just All-American.
5 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's got 12 wins in his career. He's in 12th place.
I think 6 of them were on Rayburn.
Oh,
yeah,
no doubt. He's a hammer on Rayburn. Yeah. He's in 12th place with 15-12, and they were pretty much saying like 14, 15 pounds a day is really good.
Well, he was saying it. I was watching him a little bit, and he was saying that his fish in the morning didn't bite at all. And he had some offshore stuff that never even.
And a lot of other people's fish did in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, kind of funny how that works out.
Yeah. Yep. But he was talking some cool stuff about hard bottoms and stuff.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that's big time, right?
Well, I mean,
a little hard patch on a point.
I don't know if a lot of our listeners know how important the hard bottom is, but when it comes to the spring, early spring, late winter, early spring, and then spawn, you better know what hard bottoms are all about.
Guaranteed. And that doesn't matter if you're in 2 foot of water or 22 foot of water. I remember back before we had all the awesome electronics we had in the early pre-spawn on the Potomac River, I would Carolina rig the big giant grass flats where the fish would spawn.
Yeah.
With a 3/4 ounce weight in like 2 foot of water, feeling for shell beds.
Yeah.
Because that's where they were going to gang up on.
We were trying to find them and document them.
And then we would like
triangulate.
Yeah. I mean,
the dead tree on the shore,
or
with the pine tree at this angle over here, and then the little rock that sticks out,
you know how you do it now.
Beep.
Waypoint saved.
I know. That's funny. It was funny. We even had range finders back then.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we used to have range finders, and we would sit in the boat and we'd find like a rock pile or a brush pile, or we sunk brush piles, when we were fishing tournaments. So we'd sink these brush piles, and there was no GPS. You guys got to understand, there was no GPS.
Yeah.
And we would take these range finders and we'd say, okay, on that tree right there, we're 300 feet out. And then we look at something over here and we write it all down in this little book. And I remember doing it. I remember doing it everywhere.
Well, Mike and I, last summer, as we've talked numerous times, we decided to go and fish a tournament circuit that we sponsor on the Conowinga Pool. Now, we used to fish back in the day.
Yeah.
We used to terrorize the Conowinga Pool.
That was like a big time tournament circuit down there. They'd always do it.
And we loved it, and we fished it. And we had one little rock ledge. It was an old river ledge, an old rock ledge that came off the shore. There was a tiny, tiny point before it dropped into what was back in the day the old Susquehanna River channel.
Yeah.
Of course, it's flooded now by the dam.
Yeah.
And we had on the end of this rock ledge was still some of the rock.
Yeah.
And the way we lined up on it was
frustrating as hell.
It was like roughly 50, 75 yards below a culvert.
Yeah.
And there was like one dominant tree there.
Yeah, it was like a small bush, a big bush, a tree, a medium-sized bush.
So a couple years ago, Mike talks me into fishing a Federation tournament down there, and I agreed to fish it, and signed up for it, and then Mike bailed on me, so I went down to fishing anyways. I feel like I got hustled on that one. So I decided after
like 110 degrees out that day.
It was not just that.
That's not why I bailed, but
it's not just that.
I had something going on.
But at the end of my day of practice, I had caught like, I don't know, some ridiculous amount of fish that weighed like 7 pounds. I think I basically caught just shy of 50 keepers in practice that weighed 7 pounds.
Yeah.
So I decided I could do better during the tournament. So I scrapped all that and headed in another direction. I thought, you know what? I ought to be on my point down there. And I'm going to go down there and line up on that tree. Well, the railroad came along, cut all the trees down. And I'm out there floundering around. It took me like an hour, but persistence paid off, and I finally found the end of that tiny little bitty rock.
Yep.
But now, with the waypoint. But anyways,
yeah.
It's just kind of interesting how you line up on these things, and 20 years go by and the trees grow.
Dave Wilder, how you
looks
doing,
different.
Buddy? What's up, Dave Wilder? I heard you were down terrorizing Florida fish, catching giants down there. Jack Hinkle.
Nothing wrong with that.
Bucky's in 25th place. Yep.
Yeah,
that's great. Russell.
He's got
Russell
14
Fuller.
pounds.
How you doing? Conway Hayden, Kenny Hodgen. How you doing?
Yeah, Gray Buck is in 25th place with 14 pounds.
And that's not bad. That's not a bad place to be.
Cody Pike, a Tackle Shop Live guest, who we follow, is in 55th place with 11:11. He's got his work cut out for him.
Yep.
Okay. Because like when it's a 14 to 15 pound a day thing and you have 11 on day one, you got to have like an 18-pound bag to get back up in it.
Yeah.
And then in 60th place, and I bring this guy up for a reason, Alex Davis with 11.7. And why do I bring up Alex Davis, Mike? The spinnerbait kid.
Yep.
So Alex Davis, who is a Shimano pro staffer, is going to come to Cabin Fever.
Mm-hmm.
Our Cabin Fever sale, March.
Here at the shop.
And he is going to come in and do some seminars and just generally hang out and talk fishing with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the first pro that we have committed to Cabin Fever.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought we'd mention him because he's a cool dude. We've been following him for a long time.
Yep.
He's in 60th place with 11.7. So the weights are tight.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, the other tournament I want to talk about, Mike, and I'm going to go over this quickly, and there's a reason behind it.
Quickly.
I know, you're in a hurry.
We're in 20 minutes already.
Oh, it's okay. I'm not in a hurry.
I am.
The Bass College Series.
Yep.
Was one. The first one that they had was down in Florida on the Harris chain, and it was won by some brothers, Leif and Matt Messer of Kentucky Christian University.
Yep.
Okay, they had a 2-day total of 61-13. Couple interesting things here, Mike. They caught their fish on a Carolina rig.
I know. I saw that.
Right?
I saw that.
Out in front of spawning areas.
Yeah.
Just exactly what's going on in Texas.
Telling you guys, that Carolina rig, money.
But the highlight of that tournament for SFT here is the team of Joseph Woods and Anthony Bubba Cicero.
Yep.
Bubba's our guy.
Bubba's our guy.
And they had lunker of 10-14. 10-14.
They had a big bag. They had a big old bag the second day, man.
Now, I don't know if Bubba's watching or not, but
he always watched.
I'm telling you right now, Bubba, you have got the Southern Rock mullet kicking. I don't know what you got going on down there, but I got some ideas. I was talking to your grandfather about it the other day.
Yeah,
so
looking good, Bubba. Keep it going, buddy.
Hey, Bubba.
We're
watching you, bro.
We're calling that the Aaron Rodgers.
10-14.
10-14. Unbelievable.
My God.
Nice bag, man. Way to go, Bubba.
All right, that's all I got for you on tournament talk.
Yeah, so well, that's great. We're cheering Great Buck on. We're going to watch it again tomorrow, so that's going to be cool.
Yeah.
But I think where we're going to go right now is we got to get started on this because I think it's going to wind on a little bit here. We're going to start talking about some line.
Oh,
and
dude, I'm ready, man.
George is ready.
I got my bulk spool.
Let's get going on this line.
Huh? You think that'll get me through the season, Nick?
What is that?
It might get you through the beginning.
That's high C's, Grand Slam.
Yeah, what pound test is this?
Well, this is my flipping line.
That's your flipping line.
Yeah, it's a 5-pound spool of a 130-pound test.
That's been around this shop. I'm not kidding you. It's been rolling around here. We used it for so many things. 5 years.
Yeah, we wind a lot of 60 and 80, but we're not.
Every now and then
we're not trained up on winding.
Every now and then we do 100, and it's hard as hell to wind.
Yeah, 60 and 80.
And I mean, it's tough to wind it.
Yeah,
these shark guys will like that.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not winding anything over 80.
It's tough.
80's a job.
It is.
That's 130. That's my spool. I'm ready.
So, let's talk about this line. Let's talk about the categories of line first. And I think what we'll do is just kind of go down through them real quickly here.
Yeah.
But you have monofilament, and then you have copolymer, and then you have fluorocarbon, and then you have braid. That's pretty much, and then you have leader material, as I'm putting it as a separate category.
Yeah, and there's a couple lines that kind of fall in what I would call a hybrid category.
Yeah. So there is a hybrid category.
We'll talk about that.
And we'll touch on those, but this is the ones that you guys are going to.
Is there enough?
It's too much. It's too much. So,
so when do you choose what, why?
Yeah,
how?
exactly. So, monofilament is your oldest line. It's been around for in the nylon lines market. It's been around the longest. It was big in everything. Everybody used it. I mean, everybody used it. It's still kind of it's still a big category, and it's much bigger than you guys think because especially tournament fishermen. It's a lot bigger than tournament fishermen think, but they're monofilament for me and George. We wind a lot more monofilament than we do anything. It's because it's inexpensive and it's a line that holds up to abrasion. You know, it holds up well to not abrasion, but to breaking off. You know, it doesn't break off real easy.
Well, a lot of that has to do with the stretch.
It's very strong for that kind of stuff. If you're fishing in heavy rocks, you know, it doesn't cut all in one spot. It kind of stretches over the rocks. Yeah, it'll braid up, but you land the fish. So it's big in salt water. A lot of guys are still using it in salt water. You know, a lot of
and it's reasonably priced.
And it's very reasonably priced. And that's probably one of the bigger things. The diameter is a little larger than most. You know, so and it floats well. So that's a key for us to talk about here is that it floats well, and that's a big deal for us fishermen.
Well, and the other thing about mono, Mike, there's I mean, let's face it, for most of our lives we fish with mono, right? So mono, you know, by its definition, by its name, is basically one type of material. So there's monos that are very, very limp. And generally speaking, when you get a real limp mono, it's going to fray a little easier, okay? Because they're putting that softness in there. And then there's monos that are very, very tough, and they're going to be your ones that have like more memory.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the one that we sell a lot of for our bass guys is the big game.
Yeah, big game is
still a big player.
Right down the middle of the pike.
Yeah.
That's a 40-degree day, as they'd say on the wire.
It has the extra tough kind of feel to it. And
it's a little more forgiving.
It's a little bit more forgiving, and we still sell a boatload of it.
Now you don't have you didn't get my favorite mono.
Huh?
You didn't get my favorite mono.
Sunline?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't grab them all. There was just too many of them.
There is a lot.
Sunline makes a line called super monofilament. I think it's called super, isn't it? Yeah, super monofilament. And me and George have been winding that lately here, and it is a really cool monofilament. It's super, super ultra thin.
And very, very limp.
Yeah, and super limp. So you can go, you can go to a 12 pound, and the fish is a lot like a 10 pound. I mean, it's super thin. So there's a bunch of guys fishing this stuff right here.
Yeah, the thing about monos, you know, you're going to choose them for your topwater fishing in a lot of cases. Some people like to crank with mono. Okay, but in a lot of cases, we're going to use them when we want to keep a bait up on top because they float. But there's a lot of different monos. So this particular mono right here, which is the Sunline Super, is a really good example of a right down the middle, very manageable, low memory, about as low a memory as you can get in a mono. You know, basically monos stretch more than anything else. Like I read a tech sheet for somebody's mono. It was 17% stretch. Okay, so you know, if you have 100 feet of line out, you can stretch it, you know, a foot, 1.7 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing with mono is, you know, when it stretches, it recovers then, so it's real forgiving, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the tag word on mono.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now other monos are super, you know, gorilla rope tough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, take your Trilene
XT,
take your triple fish.
Well, I love triple fish, man.
But
love
your
that
trade-off there is a ton of memory.
And that's a
which
big
is not
issue.
necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
The line's usually inexpensive, so you can change it more frequently.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, you know, dial in your mono to what you're willing to put up with.
Question for you guys when it comes to mono, getting into a reel, like let's say a spinning reel compared to a bait caster reel, what would you recommend for either?
Well, I mean, monofilament It depends. Like, some guys, a lot of our guys who are fishing it for top waters. So for bait casters, it's a definite, you can definitely do bait casting with it. And it's because of how it floats. So you can go to 12, 15 pound tests on a bait caster and the memory doesn't bother you. Spinning, however, you got to really worry about the size of diameter or line that you can use because of the memory. So say we were fishing a 12-pound test or a 15-pound test on a bait casting reel, and we wanted to put it on a 2500 spinning reel.
That's a problem.
So there's your memory problems that you get. But somebody was asking what trilene is, and trilene is XL and XT. They're monofilaments.
Yeah,
they have they're monofilaments. So for whoever was asking that, I lost who it was, but it's definitely not a diet. It's definitely not something that, as a hardcore fisherman or a guy who is pretty hardcore fisherman, you can use monofilament. It's not something that's dead. It's not a dead breed at all. It's something that you can mix into your mix. And where are we going to fish it, George? That would be,
well, I mean,
that would be a big
first of all, if you're into topwater fishing, basically your two choices are braid or mono, or you could throw copolymer in there, which we'll talk about later. But you need a line that stays up in the water column. If you ever accidentally tied a Pop R onto a reel that had fluoro on it, and you thought it was mono, and you make a couple casts, especially if you're not really paying attention, and you can't figure out why your Pop R that you're normally an assassin with isn't working right, it's because that first couple feet of that retrieve, everything's cool. Then that fluorocarbon that belly of that line starts to sink, and it's pulling your popper down. So that's what we mean by choosing a mono or a copolymer, and as we'll talk later, or a braid for a topwater. So for me, I like to fish mono in a topwater situation. But another situation where I've been known to fish mono is in shallow water cranking. And I'll do that from time to time when I'm cranking with a little bit of a not traditional crankbait rod, like a fast taper 7-foot medium powered rod, and I'm cranking hardcover.
Yeah.
And the reason I do that is I'm going up to like a 14 or a 15 mono, and I want that little bit of give. I want that little bit of stretch, if you will. So, I mean, I would say to all of you listening who are not familiar with mono, that I would recommend that you fish mono. Now, another great situation for mono, and this is something that I talk with a lot of customers at the shop here. There's a tremendous amount of interest in learning how to skip with a bait casting reel. Okay, so skipping with a bait casting reel is a little bit of an acquired talent, and we won't go into the mechanics of it, but some of the things that are going to stack the deck in your favor, obviously something that skips well, but spooling up your reel with mono. So if you spool your reel with a 15-pound mono or a 14-pound mono, and everything else is given, the correct rod, the correct reel, something that skips well, you're going to find that your learning curve is radically cut back because of the forgiveness of mono. I'm not saying you can't, learn to skip with fluoro. Obviously, I would never say something like that, because you can. But if you're struggling with skipping, or if you're intimidated by skipping, that little tip right there is a game changer.
Absolutely.
Because it just casts so much more forgiving. Another circumstance where mono is a great choice is heavier line on a spinning reel. As we all know, as bass fishermen, we're kind of conditioned to buy spinning reels in that 2,500 size. Well, that spool size on a fluoro, for example, 8-pound. But on a mono, you know, you can do a 10 or even a 12 mono on there because mono is so forgiving. 10 is beautiful on there. 12 is not bad. So
Yeah.
those are some, Mike,
Yeah.
those are some areas where
Mono
I would
still play.
I would recommend, and we do recommend
Yeah.
mono. And as Mike said earlier, we wind a lot of line here at SFT. There's 2 line winders here, and they scream all the time. A lot of it's mono.
Yeah. I got guys who fish like really super heavy cover, like big rocks with barnacles and bulkheads and stuff like that are flipping with 25-pound test mono or 20-pound test monofilament because they're just cutting everything else off. It just doesn't. There's not enough stretch in the line to get the fish out. It's and just for those situations, those small little situations, don't forget about monofilament. This
Never.
little teeny pockets in your thing. You always should have a nice spool in your line bag. You know, a couple different sizes in your line bag to fall on when you need it, because there's times, I'm not kidding you, man. This one fellow that he says, I can't use anything else where I'm fishing because it all breaks off. Yeah, I have to retie after every fish, but I'm getting fish out.
Oh yeah,
it holds up. It holds because it stretches.
Mike,
over that long distance.
Mike, I remember a tournament years ago on the Potomac, and I was catching fish in the Nanjamoy in the dog days of summer, and the barnacles were so bad.
Yeah,
I mean, I couldn't even. I was breaking fish off on 50-pound braid.
Yeah,
I mean, the barnacles were so bad. There was barnacles living on top of barnacles.
Yeah,
and out of frustration of losing the, I mean, it was terrible. I was losing 4 and 5 pounders like crazy.
Yeah,
I spooled my reel with 30-pound big game.
Yeah,
and guess what? I didn't break any more line.
Right. So
I had to retie every fish.
Yeah.
But I didn't break any more line.
Yeah. So in the back,
and I felt like I was flipping with weed whacker line.
Yeah.
But it worked.
It worked. And it's very situational. But for all you guys who are like, man, fluorocarbon this, copolymer that, braid this, don't forget about the mono. I mean, it's a little for the hardcore bass guy. It's not quite used as much, but it's not dead. It's definitely something you want to have in your box and keep around. Nick.
Well, one of the things, if guys don't want to spend the money, let's say they can only afford mono.
Yeah.
Is I always found myself, before fluorocarbon came out and all that stuff, I found myself going up on the rod. Like if I was using a medium, I might be using a medium heavy to make up for that stretch.
Yeah.
On a hook set.
Absolutely.
So that's another, I think, a good tip for anybody out there.
Well, and Josh Shore, to your point, is asking a question if the stretch of mono helps to keep fish pegged when using baits with light wire treble hooks. And it's a yes and no answer. If you're using a medium powered crankbait rod and then you add all that stretch in, it could actually hurt you. But if you're fishing more of a non-traditional crankbait rod or a medium heavy type crankbait rod in shallow water, I feel it helps.
Yeah. So
in shallow water.
Yeah. Not everybody has crankbait rods. Not everybody has a rod for every type of situation. So you can build stretch into your rig by adding monofilament. So, sometimes it's very important to have that stretch built in there, and crankbaiting with treble hooks is a big factor. For years, we fished medium to medium heavy rods with rattle traps in the grass, and it was very frustrating. And we had mono. That's all we had back then. And it was very frustrating. So we would lose a lot of fish. So it can hurt you too. It can definitely hurt you. But for everybody that doesn't have a rod for everything, a medium action, fast taper rod with monofilament, you can build that stretch in there, and you're going to land those fish a little better than that. So.
And that's a great point. And when you're picking out your rods here at SFT, some of these rods that are technique specific, you have to think about line.
Yeah.
Because, when they thought of that bait that they were using for that rod,
yeah,
they might have been using fluorocarbon.
Yeah.
You might have to go up.
I hate technique specific rods. I hate them.
Well, Nick, and another application that for me that I had great success with in the past was mono on a spinnerbait rod. I'll give you an example. A heavier powered spinnerbait rod with a 15 mono. That was my go-to setup for years.
Yeah.
In shallow water, not grass, hard cover. I don't like mono around grass.
No, it was rock.
Ever.
This was rock and stuff, and we use
Boat
it.
docks.
And we still have it. We have it to this day that we still use. Now it's a very abrasion resistant monofilament, but it's a monofilament. Yeah, triple fish.
Yeah,
Spool, big giant spool.
that's
stuff.
a mono.
Well, George, real quick question for you. Back when you were doing the Bassmaster Classic and all that, was it mono or was it? Did they have? What was the deal then?
Well, in my first classic, which was way back, you got to go into the scrolls to read about that one. It was mono.
Okay.
Yeah, it was mono. Now, the second time I fished was a decade later, and we were starting to get into the early days of fluoro. As a matter of fact, Seagar,
and Braid was around, I think, then too.
there was some Braid, but Seagar was kind of leading the charge on fluoro back then. So I was starting to mix some fluoro in, and I think we should kind of push along here because some of these other lines are gonna answer a lot of these questions better.
Yep. So after monofilament came, there was I don't know if Braid came first or I think Copolymer came.
Copolymer.
Yeah, so Copolymer came out
long before Braid.
Yeah, long before Braid. So the next line in line was a copolymer. Now I'm not allowed to say what a copolymer is because I always explain it wrong. So I gotta let George explain. He told me, so you're not explaining copolymer because you always get it wrong.
Yeah. Well, you should have a white lab coat on. So I think Miller Lite sums up what copolymer is the best. It tastes great, and it's less filling. Right?
It's exactly right.
Right?
It's exactly right.
So, I mean, it's not that hard to figure out, sports fans.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
So, you take your 2 monos. You take your nice limp mono, but that has the Achilles heel of fraying up easily. And you take your super tough mono, which, is a beast, but it has the memory of an elephant, and you blend them. Mm-hmm. And every manufacturer blends a different percentage of the 2. So you now have a happy medium.
Yep.
A couple nice benefits of copoly, a little less stretch.
Lower stretch.
A little less stretch.
Yep.
A tougher but yet limper line because they're blended together.
Yep.
So Copolymer kind of came in and said, "Hey, wait a minute. We can take and get the best of both worlds here, and you still get the benefits of the floating."
And you're blending poly, so you're not blending anything other than polys.
So Copolymer has really revolutionized and put a damper on the hardcore angler's use of mono.
Yeah.
The hardcore guy, the guy that's learning and pushing the limits with his equipment, may not fish as much mono as he used to. He's putting a copolymer in that place.
Yeah.
Right? Which is 2 monos blended, right?
Exactly.
What do you got, Nick?
So what application are you using a copolymer?
Really, copolymer fills in all the places of a mono because it behaves very much like a mono, but it's better behaved. It's more well behaved. And I think you can expand the use of, it's a little more suited towards shallow cranking. It's a little more suited towards spinnerbait fishing. It's a little more suited towards a lot of those applications where people nowadays are going right to fluoro. So if you're struggling with some fluorocarbon issues,
memory,
and you're struggling with going back to mono because you didn't care for it totally,
too much stretch,
maybe copolymer
might be the
is
place
where
to fall in.
you call home,
So
right, Mike?
yeah, exactly.
But there's also some hybrid copolymers.
Right, exactly, and I think that's where I really get into using copolymers is more for the hybrid aspect of it. I still want, and you know, a lot of your copolymers float well too. So it's you know, and the thing is, a little less stretch, a little more sensitivity because of a little less stretch. So now this is the first time we started talking about sensitivity in a poly. You know, was when these lines started coming out. There was you can feel just a little bit more. There was a little bit more feel, and we were like, "Well, shoot, we're talking about sensitivity with line now." You know, so that just started. It just started. It's not much, but it was just getting started, and we had that. So you have those benefits there, and but it still acted a lot like monofilament, so you were able to use it for that. But then they came out with these hybrids, like High Seas Grand Slam fluorocarbon coated. So now you have a copolymer with a real slim, slight skin of fluorocarbon on it. So you're going to get some of that refractive light where it doesn't show up. You know, it doesn't show up in the water as much, so it's more invisible. So you got some of that.
Can I interject on this?
Yeah.
So we have a pro staffer here at SFT. His name's Jason Shea. And Jason Shea is a smallmouth guide on the Susquehanna River, and he does a ridiculous amounts of trips. All of his clients fish with this line. Every reel he spools is spooled with this line. Now, he's a spinnerbait guy. Once the spawn's over, well, once the cold weather's over, he's a spinnerbait guy. His clients catch all of their summertime, let's call it spring, late spring, summer, and early fall fish on that line. But here's the cool thing. You want to talk about testing a line? He only uses 12-pound test. And I ridicule him to no end about the 12.
Yeah.
But
it's tough.
The diameter difference from the 12 to the 15, and I love his rationale. His clients who come from varied backgrounds, from no experience to a lot of experience, they don't have to adapt to the line. Right. If they don't know what if they're not familiar with what they're doing, the line works for them.
Yeah.
If they are familiar with what they're doing, the line works for them.
Yeah.
But my point is, he's fishing 0 to 5 feet of water 99% of the time, dragging spinner baits over top of rock.
It's tough stuff.
And they catch, he catches literally, his guide clients catch literally thousands upon thousands of fish on a spinner bait on this line. So, to kind of put in perspective what a copolymer can do for you,
yeah,
I think that story kind of gives you another.
Well, you can kind of see
another side.
Yeah, you can definitely kind of see where this can start helping you guys. You know, guys who are like, well, I don't want fluorocarbon because it gives me all that trouble. All right, which we're going to get to in a minute. And and monofilm, it just doesn't have what I want. This was the cure all for everybody. Now, this is where knot tying started to come into play, Nick. Okay, you know the problem I'm having right now?
Oh yeah,
breaking off all these fish.
It's embarrassing.
When copolymer came out, it was horrible. You really had to start watching your knots, and I just think it's the nature of the line. It's like it doesn't handle heat as well as mono. Mono, you can tie whatever knot you wanted to, and it held because it was soft and it would stretch in there and really lock in. So hell, just a regular old fishing knot was a good enough knot that you could catch all kinds of fish because it locked in well. This stuff here, with some of this stuff, you got to start watching. All of a sudden, you got to start watching your knots. Things started coming about. Remember that time with that Gamma, when Gamma first came out? It was a copolymer, one of the first copolymers we were fishing with. And I just had a terrible time with it. It was horrible. And it was not issue. So,
did I ever show you the key to that?
Yeah.
Tying that knot?
Yeah, but I think I showed you because I was so pissed off. I did so much research and I figured it out. I finally figured it out, but we all kind of get on that. But we're going to get into that knot here in just a minute, how to tie these knots properly with the line. But that's, but this is a line that a lot of people can settle in on, Nick. You can settle in on copolymers. I mean, look at this P-line Fluoroclear. You know how many people fish this stuff?
Oh, I used to love that stuff.
This is huge.
I love that.
Well, these two lines are identical.
Yeah, these are kind of competing against each other. But
the interesting thing about these fluorocarbon coated lines, the fluorocarbon coating is so thin on these two lines right here that it doesn't really affect the floating characteristics of the line. It's like a thousandth of an inch thick. They basically extrude this line and pull it through a fluorocarbon bath and just put a thin coating on there to help with the light reflection.
It's a pretty cool process.
Quick question, guys. So with this hybrid that you're talking about, George had said with mono, and this is for somebody that doesn't know, with the mono 10 to 12 maybe on the spinning, is this going to change?
No.
You're still okay with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, this is this, if anything, this has, your limpest mono. This will match it for
pretty much
memory.
Pretty much, but in the copolymer family, you have the same situation. You have some that are, thinner, and there's some that are thicker and more for the abrasion side of things, and there's some that are thinner, more for the limper side of things. So that's what you got, and that's what I always said about this. This is thinner and a little less abrasion resistance as opposed to Grand Slam, which is a little thicker, but very, very tough.
Yeah. And in a lot of circumstances, I think people overvalue the diameter of the line. In shallow water, I'm going to say non-factor.
Yeah.
Now, in deep water, where you get more drag,
that's where you start.
That's when you start paying attention to that kind of stuff.
Or crankbait fishing,
or you may get a benefit from it.
Well, you're crankbait fishing and you want that
max depth
to get maximum depth. You really want to pay attention to diameter because a thousandths will make a difference. And then this is one that that you'll see around and guys talk about. This is a cult following line right here. This is like this little group kind of over there in the corner. Those guys sitting over there with the big long beards on.
Those are ponytail guys
throwing back. You know what they're drinking? You know what these guys are drinking right here? They're drinking like what's that stuff they brew in the mountains of West Virginia?
Shine.
They're drinking Shine over there in the corners. That's what this is all about right here. This is some tough stuff right here. And I love this guy in the company because he's a long ponytail guy, man. He's a great dude. He makes some great line. This is a great little copoly. Nothing fancy, but just strong and mean to the T. And
I stopped using it.
He's got it right. It's called Mean Green.
I stopped using it. You know why?
Couldn't handle it.
I can't see it.
Well, yeah, it does. It's
thin.
It's really,
and it's green.
It's thin and it's green. It's really hard to see, but there's a cult following.
I love the line, but I can't see it.
Yeah.
So guys, we go from the mono.
Yeah.
And then we go copolymer.
Copolymer.
Yeah. What is next?
Well, next we're leaving these categories. We can take all this right here. This is all gone now. This gets out of here. This right here is gone.
Yeah.
This one here we don't need anymore. Now we're getting down into some techno wizardry.
Yeah. Now
we need some tech music.
I don't have tech music.
Oh.
I got no tech.
Bro.
I mean, I had it on there, but it was kind of weird, but took it off. Never used it.
Still rolling around out there?
Yeah.
Back there.
Mono and Co.
So
there you go. Wait a minute.
Do you want to talk about what?
Just checking.
What goes first before the
chicken or the egg?
The chicken or the egg? Because I think at this point, or do you just want to stay with the polys?
I think we want to go right to fluoro.
All right. So
inquiring minds want to know. I mean, there was an interesting question on here from Todd Langle.
Yeah.
High C's fluoro coated versus a regular fluoro,
right?
As far as invisibility.
So let's talk about fluorocarbon.
And I think this is going to explain it for you, Todd.
Fluorocarbon is just that. It's 100% fluorocarbon throughout the whole line. And that's different than a coated, okay? Because now you have the absorbency of fluorocarbon of light, you know, and how it dissipates it, you know, it refracts it. Doesn't reflect it, it refracts. It's a word, George.
Dude.
Yeah. Where's my white coat at? That's right.
So back in the day, Mike, they found these Japanese guys were out fishing in the Sea of Japan. Commercial guys, and they found the one guy worked in a chemical plant, and he found this fluorocarbon, and they were using it for something else, and he made some line out of it because he understood the principles of it, and he just started
jacking them.
Yeah, well,
catch
in really clear water.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's hard to believe that there's fishing pressure in the middle of the ocean, but if you've ever been out to the hot dog off of Ocean City,
500 boats.
You're driving all day and you're all night in your boat to get out to this honey hole, and then all you see is lights when you get there, and that clear water, those fish are getting pressure on them. Having that line go away, and to Todd Langle's point, a copolymer that is coated in a thin layer of, and think about it from this point, Todd, a human hair is basically 3/1000ths of an inch in diameter. They're basically putting 1/1000th of an inch of fluorocarbon on this. So it helps.
It helps.
But you still have that core.
Yeah.
That has some higher levels of
refraction. No, reflection.
Oh.
It's reflecting the light, so it
shows
shows
it's
up.
only refracting when it suits you.
Refracting means it absorbs the light. It doesn't push it out and make it show up. You see what I'm saying? That's two different things.
Now I need a lab coat.
Dang right, boy.
So that's the deal with fluorocarbon. So that was and guess what, Mike? Those guys out there on the boat. Yeah. Guess what the company was that formed from that?
Tuna. What was it called? It was
the line company that formed as a result of
Seagar.
Yep.
Seagar.
They started it all.
I thought you were talking about what company, like I was thinking of Chicken in the Sea.
Yeah, no.
Company. Charlie Tuna.
No. So, Seagar basically, pioneered, invented, and creates a large majority of the fluorocarbon raw materials and lines. Now, some other players have come on board in a big way, too.
Now, I got a question for you guys, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners and watchers have the same thing. With fluorocarbon, most of the other lines you talked about are in the same price range pretty evenly across the board. Yeah. But when you get into fluorocarbon, you have all different price ranges.
Yeah.
What's the differences there?
Well, I mean, you can buy a used VW. You know what I'm saying? And then you can buy a Porsche, brand new Porsche off the lot. That's exactly what you have in the fluorocarbon industry.
Yeah.
More so than any other line company. You really have. Well, that's not true. Monofilament, you have the blue line that they have at the Kmart's that,
very true,
is horrible. Memory's horrible everything about it. And then you have quality trilene products or quality monofilament products that are out there. Same thing goes true with fluorocarbon. You have inexpensive fluorocarbons that just don't, they're not the purest form of fluorocarbons. You have different grades of fluorocarbon.
Yeah, and the divisions in those grades are vast.
Are huge.
So, if you go back to the line wall here at SFT, you're going to see 40 feet of line, 50 feet of line. And, you're going to look at Sunline. You're going to look at Seagar.
Yeah.
You're going to look at High Seas.
Yeah.
Okay. For example, those are your
a bunch more.
Oh, there's a bunch more, but those are your like A tier companies. Those companies are all using the very purest, highest grade of fluorocarbon raw material. Now, there's some lower priced fluorocarbons, and here's how it breaks down. So a high end fluorocarbon, and this is the best way I can explain it to you. A high end fluorocarbon has an extremely long lifespan on your spool. And by that, I mean, if you have enough line on your spool, you could fish the same fill up for a year. Okay. Now, obviously, we're probably going to run out of line before that and have to refill. But my point is this: a FC Sniper, a Tatsu, okay, probably one of the most famous, recognizable boxes, an Invisex. You know, you fill your reel up with one of these lines right here. My favorite, Mike, you know I'm a sucker for some high C's. I love me some high C's. You know, you pick these, and there's a couple other ones that are going to go in this category. I'm certainly not trying to name them all. But when you get in that tier, as long as you have enough line on your reel to suit you, that line's good, okay? So think of it this way. You're fishing with the best for a very long period of time versus going to like a mid-grade fluorocarbon, which works well for a short period of time. And comes to mind a Vanish, okay? Comes to mind the triple fish fluorocarbon, which I don't even think they're boxing, they're spooling right now. The triple fish fluorocarbon.
Yeah, inexpensive.
So those lines gave you good performance for a short period of time. And what I would always, when Mike and I and the guys, the staff here at SFT would be asked like point blank questions on which line should I buy, that's how we broke it down for you. You know, you want to spend, 20 to 30 to 40 and fish the best for a long period of time? Or do you want to spend a third of that and have to reload 3 times in that same period of time?
So that's the problem.
6 and 1/2 dozen the other.
That's the problem with fluorocarbon. Now the issue is where price started coming into play, with our customers, and this is where, you really got to start paying attention to where you're going to use fluorocarbon. When do you want to use fluorocarbon? And there's certain times where you want to do that. But on that cost issue, all of a sudden we started to back our spools, leaving backing on like 70, where we're only putting 75 yards to 100 yards of line on at a crack, just to save us money on doing this. And I can't tell you how important that is for you guys. You do not need to put the whole 200 yards on your spool. I don't care, because me and George are going to sell it to you, but you don't have to do it. It's a very good cost-saving practice for you guys.
For all lines.
To do it for all lines. But, when you have and what you do, even if you have to do it at home where you walk off 75 yards to 100 yards and then put that knot in there, and then that every time you strip line, you go back to that knot, and then you can fill it right up, and you're only going to put the 50 yards on it every time.
Well, and that's a good point that Mike brings up. So here's kind of how we roll on this. If you're winding your line at home yourself, let's say you buy a spool of 10-pound Tatsu. That's going to get your attention.
Yeah,
okay,
$50.
There's 200 yards on here.
Yeah.
So you could do, depending on your application, 2 to 3 fills out of a box.
You can.
In a flipping situation,
yeah,
I'm going to do 3 fills.
Yeah.
In a spinning rod or a long cast situation, I'm going to do 2 fills. You don't want to screw up. Okay?
No.
So that here comes a little math for you. So you figure out how much line my reel holds. Now I'm going to run this down for you, and I want you to pay attention to this, because this is some key stuff. So you have a spinning reel that holds 200 yards of 10. Okay? Every pound test that you go up or down from there is plus or minus 20 yards. So 200 pounds of 10 becomes 220 pounds of 8.
Yards.
Or 180 yards of 12. So you can quickly do the math in your head. And once you get that backing on your reel, which is going to be a mono backing, that splice knot, which is going to be a blood knot, which we're going to show you here in a little bit. You're going to splice those two lines together with a blood knot. When you want to put the second half or the next third of your line on, you simply strip down to your knot and retie.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get that backing right, you're good to go. Just don't take the backing off your reel.
If you're not good at math, just walk it off.
And George, that's a great point you just brought up. Somebody was questioning, can you go into backing in a little more detail?
Absolutely. I can back that up.
Well, backing is can be anything, you know. I
would use a mono.
I mean, yeah, but it can be anything. But me and George, we like to put a good base of monofilament on there. You know, a quality monofilament.
It's cost effective.
It's cost effective, and you can leave it on there for a full year, and it doesn't hurt anything. You know, it doesn't break down that bad. And we've have reels that left it on for 2 years.
And if you would like to talk about the state of backing today, Scott Nemasek just chimed in. Sunline Sukamokai. I think that's how you say that. Is that how you say that, Scott? Sukamokai backing.
Yeah.
They're basically selling you a spool of backing.
Yeah.
So, and we have them in stock here. It's like a mini bulk spool of a mid-grade mono that you back your reel with.
Yeah, it's inexpensive.
It's reasonably priced,
and it doesn't break down. You know, because it doesn't see the light, so it doesn't break down real bad. And you can get a year, maybe even a year and a half out of it before you have to change it. You know, because what happens to monofilament is it does all lines. Does break down in UV conditions. You know, so that's a problem.
And you know, Mike,
that's the problem.
We wind a lot of high-end fluorocarbon for our customers.
Yeah,
and we back their reels for them. I mean,
yeah.
I couldn't sleep at night if I put 200 yards of Tatsu on your bass fishing reel.
Well, guys come to the counter and they're like, "Here, put this on for me." And it's like, "Where's your reel?" And they give me an empty reel.
We always back it.
Can you spool it? I'm like, "Well, I'm going to back that." And he's like, "Well, we don't have to." I'm like, "Well, I'm going to back it, bro."
Well, can I say this, Mike?
It's important because
just the word backing alone conjures up all these. I mean, wow, are you going to back? What kind? What do you mean? What do you mean you're going to back that? What are you going to talk about backing? I mean, people get all bent out of shape over backing.
Right.
Backing is nothing more than filling your reel up to a certain level,
which you're never going to see
with a mono, because guess what? That line's never going to see the light of day. Yeah. Would you rather have a 3 cent a yard mono on there, or a 20 cent a yard fluoro on there?
Yeah.
You know, would you like to put your spool of sunline on the bottom of your reel and never see light? No. So, you know, and we're going to get into backing more when we talk about braid, because there it's essential. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, in fluorocarbon, it's essential.
I think it is. I think it's essential because now with polys, let's talk about this for 1 second, George. Because we didn't hit this point. I have it here as a note. These are lines you have to change regularly. Like George says, some of them you can get a little stretch out a little bit more, but monofilament and copolymer is the cheapest link between, I'm even going to go one step further and say fluorocarbon. It's the cheapest link between you and the fish. Now, you've spent $1,000 on a rod and reel. You've spent $400 on a rod and reel, and you're going to put line on in the spring and you're going to fish it all year long? No, you know, you're not going to do that. And if you do that, you're asking for problems. A lot of people that fish these three lines, these poly type lines, it starts breaking down the day that you get it. Now, it breaks down a couple of ways. It's one is the UV will break it down, and number two is when you use it, you're adding twist to it. You're stretching it and you're letting it recoil. You're stretching it and you're letting it recoil. And over time, it doesn't quite recoil as much anymore. And it becomes not quite the line it was at the beginning. So you start getting twists. You start getting more loops on your casts. Okay. These problems start happening. You casting a big backlash. Oh man, it wasn't doing this before, because your line is breaking down. And then some of the stuff that you're fishing is breaking the line down also in abrasion and in twists and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, it
So-
has a life expectancy.
It has a life expectancy. So if you think you're going to buy this line and put it on in the spring and you're going to fish it all year long,
Well, it depends.
good luck to you.
If it's a really good high-end fluorocarbon, you
gonna
could do that if you had enough line on your reel.
Well, you could, but I'm going to say that you're going to be cutting off and you're going to be,
Well, yeah, I mean,
you know, and the performance of your casting and your accuracy and all that stuff starts suffering as soon as you start losing line. So it's very, very important. Very important. I push this all the time. The cheapest link between you and the fish is the line, and you need to change your line often.
Whoa.
Period.
You know what else
Easy
is
with the
important,
hand
though,
signals
guys?
there. You look like you're parking airplanes, bro.
You're
telling you.
You're saying the cheapest link between the fish and the line, or is
And
the line.
Yeah.
But how important are these knots? And maybe we should show a couple.
Well, let's talk about the knot to hook your backing to your line.
There you go.
Now, your fluoro or your mono. So let's tie a blood knot real quick.
Blood knot.
Yeah. Can you get a scissors? You know what, Nick? I'm going to tie it in this mono because it's a little bit of a easier to see. So basically, when you put your backing on your reel, so here's your reel. It's got the backing on it. Here's your backing. And I don't know how you can see this the best. And
Do it over top of the. No, do it over top of this here.
I think it shows up here. Look here. Move your arm. I think it shows up better here.
That's good right there. Don't hold it up into the Susquehanna.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross the two lines. Okay? Main line, backing. I'm going to wrap 3 wraps of the main line around the backing, and I'm going to tuck that end down through that joint there. And I'm going to hold that off to the side. Okay? Now I'm going to take my backing, I'm going to wrap it around my main line. Get a hold of it here 3 times. And of course,
Down a little lower.
here's the
There you
key.
go.
So the key is my tag end's coming down this way. So I want my second tag end to go in the opposite direction. So it's going to come up through that little loop, that little hole in the line. And I'm going to kind of form this up and then show it to you before I draw it up. So you'll notice the tag ends coming out of the knot on separate sides.
Top and bottom.
So one's backing, one's main line. And then you moisten that and you draw it up.
Blood knot.
And then you just trim it nice and close. You want a small knot because you're going to be spooling on top of the knot. So you just trim that up. Blood knot. That's how you put your main line onto your backing. Let's do that one more time, Nick.
Yeah, Tom Mills makes a great point there too about changing your line. As you lose your line, you're changing, your gear ratios, speeds, because your spool diameter is getting smaller.
So we're going to cross those lines.
How you doing, Millsy?
We're going to give ourselves about 3 wraps. We're going to fold our tag end down through that juncture of those 2 lines. Kind of get that off to the side. Tying knots is a lot about controlling the line with your hands. Getting grips on the line, controlling it. I'm going to wrap my other tag end 3 times. Now that forms a a little loop in there, a little hole in there. Now, you might need some glasses there.
It's a gigantic hole, and you still missed it.
See that? Draw it up. Whoops. I might have missed that.
No, bro. That's what happens when you don't.
No, I might have missed that loop.
No, I thought so. I thought you did.
All right.
That's
third time's
exactly
the
what
charm,
happens when
Nick.
you don't wet your knot too, guys.
Oh, you always moisten your line.
You gotta moisten your and George isn't doing it for some reason. I don't know
Well,
why.
it's just because I'm not gonna fish with this knot. All right, let's do this real quick here. 3. Fold it down through there. Control that line. Okay, Nick?
Hi, Don Roeder.
3. And
Smaller than a double uni, absolutely.
there's the loop.
Plus, you don't need to tie a double uni with these types of similar properties.
I got it that time, Nick. Draw it up. Blood knot.
Blood knot.
Trim it.
Good to go. Double uni knot is like not the easiest knot in the world to tie. Well, I'm always about simple, keeping it simple. Kiss.
That's how you put your line on your
Keep it
backing.
simple,
Not
stupid.
braid. Not braid. That's how you do anything but braid. We're going to do that.
Braid,
next.
this doesn't work for braid. These are similar properties. Similar properties. That's what this is all about.
All right, let's
here.
wrap up this fluorocarbon talk, boys.
So, why fluorocarbon? Fluorocarbon is your most sensitive poly.
It's not poly.
Or your most sensitive plastic or whatever line.
Fluorocarbon.
It's the most sensitive out of those types of lines.
Sinks.
It sinks,
Has lower stretch.
has much lower stretch,
Much higher abrasion resistance.
and much higher abrasion resistance.
It will change.
That's the positives of that line. The negatives to that
It
line,
will change your fishing.
the negatives to the line are memory. And memory is the nasty little word that goes along with fluorocarbon, and is why a lot of people don't like fluorocarbon. When you are filling your spools, and this is a good little point for you guys out there, when you're changing your lines and you're sitting in your boat or you're sitting in your house and you're wrapping the line on, what happens to a lot of people is they overfill their spools.
They do.
There's a lot of overfilling going on, and with fluorocarbon especially, you really got to have a nice lip on your spool. You want that nice 1/8 of an inch. I mean, I'm telling you, 1/8 of an inch lip on that spool. It's not gonna hamper your casting. Your distance. Not gonna.
Some spools are designed differently than others.
Yeah, I don't really care which one it is. It'll just freaking save your ass if you just leave an 1/8 of an inch on all of them.
I will say this about fluoro as a line in general. For subsurface techniques, it will change your fishing. It'll change your success level. It will get you more bites. There's so many benefits to fluorocarbon that you will learn how to deal with the negatives.
But,
and I highly recommend a good quality fluoro.
And to help you with those negatives, the one is to fill your
spinning
reels properly,
spinning,
and in spinning,
just show the people what we mean by that.
Don't go too heavy on your line weight.
Let's show people what we mean by that. A spinning reel. So let's
first tell them what pound test that they need to put on a spinning reel.
So let's say you're going to fill your spinning reel
first.
Huh?
Say that first.
Well,
that's the point I was trying to say.
8.
Yeah, you don't want to go above 8.
Not on a spinning reel.
Yeah.
Let's say you're going to fill your spinning reel with fluorocarbon. Okay. Now, actually, it's not that cut and dried.
You can put 10 on there.
On a 2,500 size reel or a 3,000 size reel, you don't want to go above an 8. That's if you're going to fill it with fluorocarbon. Our next line might address that for you. So this is the spool lip right here. That bottom of that chamfer, that edge right there. When you're filling that with fluorocarbon, you want to be slightly below that edge. You do not want to be flush with that edge. Okay. And on a spinning reel of this size, I do not recommend you going above an 8. Now, if you're a 10-pound fluorocarbon guy on a spinning reel, I'm not talking liter, I'm talking fluorocarbon, go to a 4,000 size reel. There's a reason why guys like Kevin Van Dam and other elite caliber pros fish 4,000 size reels. It's because they like to use fluorocarbon on their reel. Not braid to a liter. They like to use fluorocarbon. I'm strictly talking fluorocarbon. We're going to talk braid next. So that is what we mean when you're filling that reel. Okay? Now, while we're at it on the spinning reel, let's talk about filling your spinning reel. I need this one more second, Mike. There's only one way to fill a spinning reel. There's two ways, the right way and the wrong way.
Yeah, and we have a nice video on YouTube
Of filling a spinning reel?
Yeah.
By hand.
by hand.
Yeah. So
We have
basically, if you look at this spinning reel and you rotate it, you'll notice that this is your line roller right here. Okay? This is your bail. This is your line roller. This part here is called the rotor. So no matter how you want to say it, the rotor or the line roller is rotating in a clockwise direction. Are we all in agreement? Okay. The only possible way to fill that reel is to have your bulk spool sitting flat on a surface and have the line coming off of that spool in a counterclockwise rotation. Do we all agree? Let me flip this over. Clockwise. Counterclockwise. Pretty simple. There's no other way to fill a spinning reel by hand than that. Because you will eliminate your twists. Because this is twisting it this way. This is twisting it this way. And those two twists meet in the middle and cancel each other out. Okay?
and the other thing we found about filling spinning reels, if you fill from the bottom, in other words, if you strip all your line off and you fill it from the bottom, the amount of twists that are built up from putting 200 yards on is way worse than if you only put on 50 yards.
Ah!
So that's the other main reason why.
Or 100 yards.
Or 100. You know, you're cutting all those.
So what do we need?
Huh?
What's the key word?
Backing.
Backing!
You know, I'm telling, you know, I tell a lot of guys that they're like, well, I still get twists when I'm doing it myself. Well, that's because you're compounding. Doesn't matter what you do with a spinning reel. You're going to get twists, period. But we want to eliminate as much as possible. So one way of doing that is only put a half a spool on at a time, because you're not compounding it for as long. And when you get to the part you want to fish, it's got all this stuff built up in it. So,
Mike, I got a great comment here from a Josh Sawyer. KVD line conditioner has worked wonders for me.
yeah.
Josh.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
What I want to say to you, Josh, and everyone else is when you're dealing with fluorocarbon or a mono or a copolymer, not braid, but those other ones, the reason a line conditioner works so well for you is it kind of softens. It doesn't soften it. It smooths the line out. It makes it slick. And those are all silicone-based products. So you have your KVD, Real Magic, Loses Marketing one. It's all the same stuff. Some of them are in a pump. Some of them are in aerosol. Great product.
John
Okay.
Kopp.
Great product, Josh. Great product.
John Kopp. No, do not put a pencil through the spool
John, did I stutter?
to put your line on your reel. Now, John, I know it takes a little bit for you. Okay. So we're going to say it one more time.
John, you need to warm up here, bro.
Do not use a pencil to fill your spinning reels. Do not put the pencil through there and hold it. You're just building twists like crazy. No wonder you don't like spinning reels.
Yeah, John, I'm not sure about you. You need to come in here, John, for some one-to-one counseling.
I'm telling you, it won't help. It won't help.
I mean, you're going to think you came in to see Dr. Phil after we talked to you.
So, George, real quick before we go on to the next subject or line. So you said when fluorocarbons first came out to now, did you see a huge difference?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, like many of our viewers, like many of our hardcore customers, I mean, I'm if it's subsurface, I'm 90+% fluoro. It's that big of a difference from a perspective of more bites, more feel, more abrasion resistance, more. So, I mean, yes, it's much more expensive, but okay, I'm not really putting a price tag on my fishing. It is what it is.
Kurt Ridgeland, you're right. Pencil through the spool for bait casting is fine. Absolutely, because it's going straight off of here and straight onto the spool. There's no twisting effect. But if you're taking it straight off a spool like this, and you're twisting it around here, you're just creating all kinds of problems. So yeah, absolutely, Kurt. You can do all your
that was specifically spinning oriented.
You can do all your bait casters, and you have to do all your bait casters with the pencil through.
Absolutely,
or have it spinning in a some kind of a box or something, which a lot of guys do, and it works out well.
Yeah, you don't want to fill your bait caster like that. You want your spool to revolve because your bait caster is revolving and that's revolving, so it's a straight line.
So we talked a little bit about knots problems with the copolymer. Things started to talk about knots. The last part of this thing now with fluorocarbon is it's a ton of problems with knots. You must tie your knots properly with fluorocarbon because there's so much problems with the friction on fluorocarbon that fluorocarbon does not like. We noticed it in copolymer. We noticed the heat was really changing the line a lot and was making it a lot weaker. It's compounded with fluorocarbon, and your knots, if you build friction up in them, will even go another fold times with a weaker line, and you just have all kinds of problems with it. So make sure you tie the proper knot. And one knot that we use probably 100% of the time is the polymer knot. And
here's the trick.
The polymer knot has to be tied properly. And George is going to show you the proper way of doing it.
Yeah, so you can either thread your line through the eye of the hook. You can see it.
Which I like to do.
And then pull a length and bring it back through. Okay. Or you can just double it over and feed it through the eye of the hook. But here's the key. So here's what you want to do. You tie a Palomar knot, you double your line, you tie an overhand knot, right? See this finger right here? This finger right here? Yeah, I'm not telling you you're number one.
Turn it that way so they can see. It's through the hole.
It's through that loop.
It's through the loop.
Why is that? So the loop doesn't close. Now I'm going to put my bait through this loop. Okay, now I'm going to transfer this finger into that loop. I'm keeping that loop from collapsing.
You don't want it to collapse.
I don't want this line to bite down. As I draw this up, I have to moisten this line. Okay? As I draw this up, I'm going to use this finger to expand that loop. Now, this is my original loop here. It has to be on top. It has to come down last. See how nice and loose that is? There's no binding. Nothing.
Hold it down a little bit. Hold it. Get it out of that. There you go.
There's no binding. It's completely loose to the bottom of the knot here. You can see I haven't cinched it up yet. There's no binding. And if you tie it right, the last thing you'll feel is a click. And that's that knot cinching. Now, let me show you what I mean by that. What happens a lot on a Palomar knot, particularly on fluorocarbon, if you're not careful, is, let me get caught up here, people. You will allow your line,
Ryan,
to bind. So here we are with all this slack to pull out of this knot, and we're tight down here. So we are forcing this, okay? We are forcing this, okay? See that? Forcing it, forcing it, forcing it. That heat,
just let off there. You'll see it.
you can see, has curled my line.
Hold it in front of you. There you go.
See that little kink right there?
All the way up through there. It's all the way up through.
That's
the problem.
bad.
That's the problem.
That is bad. So, Nick.
That's about 30% strength of the line there.
So what we're going to do here, Nick, and a Palomar knot, interestingly enough, is virtually a 100% knot. It's 90-something% strength. So what we're going to do here, Nick, the key here, Nick, look at that. Look how it curled that line. See that? Looks like a question mark. So let's tie this knot correctly, Will, if we will.
When spooling a spinning reel, does it affect going through the guides of your rod? No, not at all. You can put it through the guides of your rod, and I've never seen any problems with that at all.
So double your line.
So George, can you just stop right there for a second?
Absolutely.
When do you put that finger where?
I'm going to show you right now. So double your line, tie an overhand knot. Okay, that knot is being held open by this finger. Okay, I'm in that loop. I'm going to put my knot through my lure through the loop. Okay, now I'm going to transfer this hand to help keep that open. Okay, here's my original loop. That has to come down on top. This loop here has to come down on top of the knot. I'm going to use this finger here to loosen that up. I moistened my line. Every time it wants to bite on itself, I open it up. And you'll see, loose to the bottom, and there's my click. It's a perfectly tied Palomar knot. That heat, it's not good for mono. It's not good for copolymer. It destroys fluoro.
Andre, do not wet your line while filling your spools, and do not heat it up.
No.
Do not heat your line.
No.
Nor wet your line when you're spooling it up.
No. Do exactly what we showed you there, Andre.
You do not want to do that, because
don't put it through a book. Don't put it in a bucket of water.
You're changing everything about the line, with heat. So you don't want to mess with heat. Heat's bad. Heat's a bad thing. Can a twist be eliminated some by letting a lot of line out and then reeling it in? Well, as a temporary measure, if you're out fishing and you whatever you were doing, just twisted your line all the hell up, absolutely, you can cut your lure off, let some line out behind your boat, troll along a little bit, and what it does is actually unspool some of that twisting. It doesn't eliminate it, but it helps you out to get through the rest of the day. Then when I would get home, I would strip that off and retie. Reload it, because you just can't get rid of it. And why go out? Listen, we work 5-6 days a week. We're working 10, 12 hours a day. You get that one day. You don't want freaking headaches. Take the $4 and put the line on your reel.
Unless it's fluorocarbon.
Unless it's fluorocarbon, take the $8 and put the 50 yards of line on your reel.
Or 10.
Mike, say you're saying again about the cheapest link.
The cheapest link is the line. Between you and the fish is the line, and between you and a good ass day. Now, here's the other thing with you guys with kids. and you're taking your kids out, and you got those rods piled in the corner of your garage, and it's been 3 months, and you decide, man, let's go out fishing. Or you've been 4 months, let's go out fishing, and you take them out there, and what are you doing all day long? You're sitting there taking out tangles all day long with those reels. I mean, so memory is horrible. It builds up just by sitting and not being in movement. So take the time, strip the line off, 50 yards, 75 yards, 100 yards, put that line on there. It's inexpensive, and you're going to have a good day of fishing. That's where we want to be with that. Okay.
Let's talk about some braid.
Very important. Very important. So now the evolution went into a new material, and I'm never going to forget it. It was spider wire. And George and I were talking about it. We were like, what the hell is this stuff? And then they sent it to us, and they sent it to us, and we started selling it and putting it on reels. We had no freaking clue what it was.
Yeah, so basically, you
remember when that happened?
Oh yeah.
You remember how many guys were so pissed off at it?
Oh yeah.
We're using the wrong knots.
Well, I mean, there was a learning curve here. I mean,
it was horrible.
Spider wire hit the market, and they didn't tell anybody anything.
Yeah.
So, basically, no stretch.
Like that ever in my life.
Super small diameter. But here's the key to braid. Don't think about your braid so much by the pound test as the diameter. So when we say things like fishing your topwaters on a 50-pound braid, no, we don't need 50-pound test to catch a 3-pound smallmouth on a topwater. But we do want a 12 to 14-pound test diameter to make those baits react, in that walk the dog fashion, a cutting type fashion. When we're flipping pads and mats for largemouth, we don't need 65-pound braid, but we do need that 20-pound diameter, because braid has, like all lines, braid has some shortcomings. And one is it's not super abrasion resistant. Braid is made up of numerous small fibers. If you ever Google a braiding machine on your phone and watch them braid line, there's all these little satellite braiders that are down here. There's a four carrier braid uses 4 of them. An 8 carrier braid uses 8 of them. No big mystery there. And they're braiding little filaments into bigger filaments, and then they're coming up here and getting braided into the main filament. So those little filaments fray up. They get, you rub them over a rock. That's that fuzziness that you see. That's strength being eliminated.
Well, there's no stretch, so it cuts all in one spot.
Yeah, and if you start with if you try to flip, heavy cover with a 20-pound braid, because you usually use 20-pound fluoro or mono.
Right.
Well, your 20-pound braid has the diameter of a 6-pound mono. Would you flip with 6-pound fluoro? Would you flip with 6-pound mono? No. By flipping, and this is where the original spider wire came out, and we're out Carolina rigging with 20-pound spider wire and popping it like floss. The sinker beating it against the bottom was wearing it out. So, learning curve, right?
Absolutely.
Learning curve.
Yeah.
So braid gives us unbelievable sensitivity,
right?
Because there's no stretch. You don't really realize what stretch is until you fish with something that lacks stretch. Now, you can take a mid-grade rod and amplify its sensitivity by going to braid.
It takes and it totally puts a ton of sensitivity into your whole outfit, and it's just because of the line.
Plus, that lack of stretch leads to increased lure movement if you're working a topwater or a hook set.
The diameter will help you too with a lot of lure movement, and a hook set is unbelievable.
Especially if you're fishing with maybe you have your kids out fishing,
and
a spinning rod filled with braid with a leader.
You're missing the whole thing.
They're going to get that hook set where they don't have that strength, that power. So there's a lot to that.
Biggest damn thing in the world. You're missing it.
Not really.
No memory.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can twist it up.
You can do whatever you want with that stuff. And
Yep.
you're not going to get backlashes. You're not going to have all the freaking problems that all this other stuff has. That was the greatest thing about it. And then all the other stuff George said.
Yeah. So, I mean, for example, on that spinning reel, here's our friend, Mr. Stratic. Spool's empty. You want to talk about versatility? We talked about filling this guy with mono. We talked about filling this guy with fluoro. How about filling this guy with braid?
Yeah.
And then all we have to do is change the leader. And we can go from finesse fishing to a heavier cover situation by just changing 10 to 12 feet of line.
Well, real quick question, George. Before we even getting into filling with braid, are we using the same backing?
Mono.
Mono.
Well, we use mono. You can use fluoro for that matter.
Well, you have to back your spool up with anchor your braid. Now, here's another thing from tackle shop owners that we see all the time as people come into the shop and they're like, oh, my drag's not working. There's something wrong with this reel. The drag's not working. I just got it. I don't know what's going on. Me and George are like, well, did you put the braid on yourself? And they go, yeah. Okay. Well, the second question, did you back it up with backing? And they're like, huh? Well, that we know exactly what it is right away. And unfortunately, we can't take it off the spool onto another spool. So right away, right there, all that money right out the window because it wasn't put on properly. You have to back and anchor you have to anchor braid with a monofilament backing, or any one of those. We use monofilament, and number one, to anchor it to the spool, but number two is build it up so you don't have to. Again, expensive line.
Yeah,
expensive line. Why put a whole bunch of that line on?
I don't need 300 yards.
That you don't need.
I don't need 300 yards of 15-pound braid on my spinning reel.
Exactly. So you don't need it. Don't put it on there.
I need 100 yards.
Yeah. And the other thing that George didn't, I don't think he really touched on too, is, this line cast unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
You're going to get an incredible cast out of it. And the nice thing about braid is you can cast it real far. And if you get bit on the end of the cast, guess what? With that no stretch, you're going to get the hook set. So there's a lot of great positives to it. Where were you going? Where were you going with that?
I was going with, putting, for example, on a spinning reel, filling it with a braid.
Yeah.
And then having the flexibility of going from,
leaders.
I can go from the extreme of a 6-pound leader for extremely winter fishing or extremely deep, clear water. Or if I decide to go shallow water, largemouth fishing. I was watching somebody yesterday on a show, and they were up in the thick stuff, throwing a Nico rig with 12-pound. All I got to do is cut my knot and put my leader on, right?
And I love that George just said not, because
it's not time.
It's not time.
It's not time. It's
not
time.
Well, it is, but hold on a second. When are you going to use braid? See, you're jumping the horse, buddy. You're jumping.
It's okay.
You're jumping. You're way out there.
That's all right.
All right. Why would you want braided line over fluorocarbon? Why would you want mono? We did it. Why do we want monofilament over this? Why do we want copolymer over this?
Well,
why do we want braid over something else?
All right. So we kind of dabbed on it, but and you make a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, really?
Why would I want to put it on one? I have 5 rods.
I'm going to give you some what force.
This is what we want to get to.
So, for example, in my top water fishing, okay, I took and fished braid for a year or two, and then I went back to mono for a year or two. I could go either way. I think I prefer braid. So, to Mike's point, no memory. So, if I'm throwing a splash it on 30 or 40, or I prefer 50-pound braid, it acts like I'm throwing it on 10-pound mono. But I have no stretch. My bait walks beautifully. And on the end of a long cast, all I got to do is just tighten up and I got a good hook set. I can make an argument either way. If I'm flipping, now where I don't like braid, we're going to talk flipping here for a second. Where I don't care for braid is hardcover.
Right.
So let's talk flipping. This is more cut and dried.
Easy
Flipping docks,
easy peasy,
flipping
I like to
rocks,
call it.
flipping trees. I do not recommend, nor do I use braid. Now, those of you who have perfected your craft with or around braid, I get that. I get that. You've designed your system around it. That's not what I'm talking about. For me, fluoro on hardcover, braid on grass. And by grass, I mean fairly thick, heavy pads and or fairly thick, heavy, matted or hydrilla type grass.
Yeah, hyacinths, hydrilla, all the big hardcore stuff.
Thick. If I'm in clumpy grass, I prefer a fluorocarbon. Now, I could also make an argument for braid. And for, again, those of you who have designed your system around braid, we're not talking about you.
Okay, here's another one.
Okay, because you built your system. You know what you're doing.
Another reason is fish braid. You're fishing deep water and you're drop shotting.
Yes.
Extremely deep water. And you're using a 6 to 8 pound leader. A 10-pound braid is a 4-pound diameter.
Yes.
And it really helps get the contact with the bottom and the feel. And then again, 30, 40 feet of water drop shot, which we're seeing all this stuff. We're seeing it on TV. Those guys, 99.9% of them are tightening up and you hear it. They're tightening up on braid. They're all fishing braid because it's the feel, the contact, and then the hook set is positive in 40, 30, 40 feet of water. And it's
agreed.
It's a big deal there. So
there's
two, I think, heavy grass.
I probably wouldn't go north in deep water without braid on my drop shot rod because of exactly what Mike just said.
I just think that in two instances where you must use braid in our minds, deep water drop shotting on a spinning rod and flipping grass, heavy cover.
And and then I think
vegetation.
I think a third position, Mike, that is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Is spinning in general.
Yeah.
With braid.
Yeah.
Because of the flexibility of instantaneous leader adjustments.
Yes, that's awesome.
As quick as you can tie a knot, you went from finesse to power.
I got
from power to finesse.
I've got on my rod.
And you got all the benefits of long cast, hook set.
Well, to me, I have two braids on my spinning. I have the 10-pound test braid on there, and then I have the 15-pound test braid on there. So when I'm largemouth fishing, I like 15-pound test braid, still only a 6-pound diameter, right? Still going to cast great for me, but now I got that little bit more tweaked, horsepower there, and I can put on there like a 12 or 15-pound leader and flip in around around stuff. Now,
I like a 12.
So here, let's talk about leaders here a second. Smallmouth fishing with 10-pound test braid in shallow water, whether you're fishing a tube, whether you're fishing a swim jig or a swim bait, or this is spinning. And you're fishing cover, you're fishing rocks, you're fishing, you're going across ledges with your line and stuff. You got to get that braid away from it. You got to get it away from all that. I like a 10 to a 12 foot leader. So that's shallow water river fishing, a 10 to 12 foot leader. You can adjust that leader length as you go into the bay or the docks or some of that stuff. You can go to a little shorter leader, say a 7 foot or an 8 foot leader. But I still like a longer leader because we're using the 10 pound, we're using the 10 pound or the 15-pound mono for presentation. But more importantly, we're using the 12-pound for the abrasion resistance around the pylons, around the docks, around the rocks, and getting that line away from it.
Big time.
Yeah.
And Mike, to your point there, you're talking about the river. I really see no reason to go away from that anywhere. I mean, you can use 10 to 12 foot leader anywhere you go, really.
Absolutely.
And there's an argument for that, but
Okay.
Something about a straight 8-pound test fluorocarbon directly to your rod, fishing a tube or a something finessey in whatever conditions, but I feel like there's a time. I used to be all braid to fluoro leaders, okay? But now I'm not, because I was kind of schooled on this a little bit. I fished some of my buddies' stuff, and it was all straight 8-pound fluorocarbon.
Don't lie.
And there's something about that straight fluorocarbon all the way through in certain situations. I want to say wind it's straight fluorocarbon is better because it sinks, cuts through there, and you get more line to cut through into the water. You know what I'm saying? There's a few instances where you're just like, oh my God, I still have this feel. I have this crazy feel. It's still there. Whereas with braid to fluoro leader, I kind of lost some of that, whether it was wind or whatever. So don't sell yourself short on that, Nick. You know, you might want to have one.
Where I like to use a straight fluoro is with a spy bait. I prefer
exactly.
it.
So there's exactly, and I do too, because I like the sink rate of it better.
Right.
And I think you get a better straight shot to it.
Well, not only that, I like that bow in my line so that I don't bring that spy bait through the water too fast. I have a tendency to
reel too quick. Yeah.
I'm a power fisherman. So it does help me slow down, where that braid, you got that direct contact.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where I like it. But for me, you know, I really like that braid to fluoro. I do, but I go with a longer leader. I'm a 10 to 12, no matter what.
Absolutely.
It seems to work.
And
I mix it up.
And you know, Nick, here's the deal. So you have 4, or say you have 3 spinning rods. You have 2 with braid and 1 with fluoro. That's the kind of mix I like to see.
You're good to go.
I like that mix.
If you have 3 spinning rods, you should come in and see me. I can solve that problem for you. You're halfway's home. I can fix that. Yeah. I'm kind of like changing my method a little bit. I was straight fluoro for life. And then I started fishing deep water with the braid. And I said, wait a minute. There's something to this. So now I'm kind of a mixture. I can't quite get off that straight fluoro. I had an interesting day last summer fishing with Mike here. And Corbin was along with us as well. Matter of fact, it was a couple days. We were on a phenomenal fluke bite, but they were a little funky. Mm-hmm. And I was missing a ton of fish on straight fluoro. And this might have been in my head, but I switched on the spot to a rod that had braid, and I put a leader on it and converted. Mm-hmm. High percentage of my bites after that. And it's simple. Yeah. It was super low, clear water. We were making bomb casts. The fish were eating it on the very end of the cast. And with that lack of stretch, I was just getting that.
He was still getting bit, but he wasn't getting the hook set.
I was losing fish.
That particular day, he was losing a bunch of fish.
Well, see, and I love when people ask me about line, my biggest tip to anybody with line is if you're in the back of the boat or the front of the boat and somebody's catching fish and you're not, one of the first questions I will always ask, what line are you throwing?
Yeah.
It can make a huge difference. And people don't really think about it. They're like, oh, I'm just going to keep with what I'm doing. You know, that line adjustment that George just talked about.
There's times.
It really can make a difference.
Yeah. There's definitely times. Yep. Definitely times.
That's exactly what we wanted to get to. We wanted to kind of break this down for you guys. We're going to kind of wrap.
We got a knot to tie.
Oh yeah, we have to tie.
We got to talk about some new product. Don't hang up, guys.
No, don't hang up yet, because we still got leaders. I'm just talking about the major lines.
We got some new product.
We wanted you guys to know, you know, where and when you use these lines, and I think we got that across pretty good. The other category of line is there's 2 of them. While George is getting stuff ready here, I'm going to talk about them because they're smaller categories, but they're similar. One is the hybrid braids. Like one everybody talks about is nanofill. Nanofill is microdynema. Now braided line is made out of most braided lines made out of Spectra, but Berkeley uses microdynema, and what they do is they braid the line and then they fuse it together, and they kind of make it into a hybrid line. So it's like almost like a mono braid. It's almost melted at that point, but it's not quite there. And they heat this thing up and they bring it to almost a one filament type of deal, but it's not quite there. But it makes it very slick, super slick. It's one thing about nanofill, which I don't think I'll have any argument with anybody here. You can throw nanofill farther than any other line that's out there. It throws farther than 4 carrier braid, 8 carrier braid, 13 carrier braid, whatever they have out there. You can throw it for 1,000,000 miles, okay? But there's some problems to it. There's some knot issues that are a little bit more technical with the knots on it. You got to retie your knots quite often. I used them a lot. I used nanofill for a lot of years, but I'm telling you, if you don't retie your knot, if you're fishing a swim bait with it, especially, you don't retie your knot twice a day, you're asking for trouble. And then George is going to get into something here too. I hope he does, about anchor and braid, on a certain anchor knot we use on that. But the other thing I want to talk about real quickly here is leader material, because leader material is different than the boxed spinning reel, tie up to your reel and put it on your reel line. It's different. Did I bring up leader materials here?
Yeah.
Leader material is
now some leader materials are different, not all.
Yeah.
You forgot one of the good ones. Keep going. There you go.
Right here.
There you go.
So what they tell me,
that's different.
What they tell me about this stuff right here is this is 100% fluorocarbon, and it's at its purest form. And the problem, as we know, the problem with fluorocarbon is it's too stiff. If you use the purest form of it, it's too stiff. There's too much memory to it. So these lines right here are leader materials that they use. They don't have to wrap it around a spool. They want the highest abrasion resistant. They want the lowest amount of stretch, and they want the most invisible line out there. And that's what this is all about. You got this one, and the other one you have right here is the top knot. The top knot's a really good super fluorocarbon also that has a lot of abrasion resistant. It has a lot of fluorocarbon abilities of invisibility. But I'm telling you right now, this one right here, this Seaguar, Blue Label Seaguar, and everybody says, what about the Red Label? Well, it's just inexpensive. Red Label's cheaper.
Red Label doesn't come on a leader spool.
Right. And it's cheaper.
It's line.
You want this. You want leader material. So here's when I use this. I don't use it for my 10-foot leaders, Nick. Okay? I don't use it for my 10-foot leaders unless I'm in a really different situation, a tournament situation where I really needed that extra abrasion resistant. But you don't need it for fishing. This is Carolina rigs. This is the other time I use it, and George didn't really talk about it because we don't do it too much, is if I'm flipping with braid, with a little short leader, a little 2-foot, 3-foot leader. And I think, I'm Raystown Lake, I'm fishing it up there. It's crystal clear water. I'm flipping. I think they're seeing the braid. I need to change it up. I'm in heavy grass. I'm going to put just a short leader on. This is what I'm going to use. When you want the most invisible and the most abrasion, then you use your leader materials. This isn't something you spin up on here because the memory is going to kill you. This is high abrasion resistance. This is lowest stretch imaginable, and it's it's going to catch those fish, and you're not going to have to worry about it breaking off on the Carolina rigging and whatnot. And so it's a purest form, totally different than a main fluorocarbon. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, so there is a difference between leader and main line.
Yeah.
And it definitely has some benefits. So it's something for you to consider. I mean, you can also just take a good quality fluorocarbon and use it as a leader, but you may not be getting the best of your potential there.
You're not. It's proven.
So what we're going to do here, and this is kind of important because you can't tie regular knots when you're putting a leader on braid or attaching a backing to braid.
And
There's
George,
a lot of knots out there.
real quick with this knot that you're about to tie. If I want to tie braid to fluoro, this works.
Oh, this is great.
Does it also work with copolymer? And
Oh yeah.
mono?
Yeah, this knot is simple. Small diameter knot, so it goes through your guides well. I'm just going to put it out there like this. This knot will not fail. I've caught 80 to 100-pound fish on this thing with as much heat as you can put on an outfit, to little light line and little light braid. It's simple to tie. I do have some tips for you on this. It's called the Alberto knot, or as we prefer to call it, the crazy Alberto knot, in honor of the gentleman who
What's up, Bammy
pioneered it.
12? Just tie that knot right now for you, buddy. Joe Gallo, how you doing? Robert Burtz. Go ahead, George.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take our leader or our backing. We're going to double it. And I like to give myself a good 6-8 inches of line to work with. And then you just simply take your braid through the end of that loop, which is basically a loop at this point. And it's real simple. Kind of pinch that together so you have something to anchor. Kind of tension these up like this. And wrap your braid like 6 or 8 times. And if you stack your wraps up, you notice how those wraps are stacked on top of each other, Nick? If you go ahead and stack those wraps, that knot will form up real small and real neat. Now I'm going to wrap back down over top of those wraps an equal number of wraps. Okay? Pretty simple. Up through, wrap, wrap, right? Now, here's my loop. Here's my braid coming up through my loop. I'm just going to follow that back down through the loop. Right? Moisten it, of course. Pull your double ends together. That's going to form your knot, and then drop off to your main lines and complete your knot. And that is the crazy Alberto. Now, I have a very important tip for you. If your leader is 12-pound test or higher, you need to pay attention. If you don't use 12-pound test or higher, you don't need to pay attention.
Go get another beer.
So, let's take this tag end and let's tie 2 half hitches. And all I'm going to do, Nick, is I'm just going to take this tag end around my main line, through that loop, cinch that up, snub it up. Don't use your teeth. And then do it again. Half hitch. Right there. Cinch that up. That will lock that knot. Something horribly wrong occurs on heavy leaders. And the other tip I would like to give you is when you trim this knot, I would like you to trim this knot as flush as you possibly can, particularly on the leader side. So I want to get my scissors, and I use these little Cuda braid scissors. And I want to get them I don't want that little burr of a tag end there, because that will catch your line. And I got to tell you, it just pisses you off.
Wind knots. Definitely pisses you off.
And that, my friends, that's a wrap, as they say, Mike.
That's a wrap.
And George, again, on that 2 half hitches.
Yes.
That is over 12, right?
12-pound test or higher, I have found that is critical.
we were me and George striper fish.
Critical.
We striper fish a lot, and we take our bass rods down with 15-pound braid on them, and we put 12 to 15-pound leaders, sometimes 20-pound leaders, sometimes most of the time 20, 25.
2025.
So it really was a problem with 20, 25-pound test leaders with the light 15-pound braid. And it's what it is. It's the casting through your guides that unlocks that knot over time because it's just too big of a clunky thing.
I've actually tied this knot with 80-pound braid and 60-pound leader. It's not pretty.
It's not.
But it does not slip.
Nope.
I've caught 60, 70, 80-pound fish on that rig. That knot is money. Yes, you can make an argument for other knots.
There's a lot of other knots. There's a lot
I'm
of
not
them.
here trying to. Mike, do we judge knots?
No.
We don't judge.
Listen,
you're in the trust tree here. We're not going to judge your knot.
We're not going to fight about knots. So it's just not one thing I'm not going to fight about.
It's just not worth it.
But it's an easy knot to tie. And we're all about easy peasy. You know what I'm saying, Nick?
And I was going to say that every knot that you guys showed tonight,
very easy.
It's all about being efficient
and fast.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you want. And also,
let's face it,
they're all easy knots that you can teach somebody how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, let's face it.
Absolutely.
I got real porn.
Yeah, we're going to wrap this up, but I hope that answers a lot of your questions. And listen, you guys can come in and ask us or call us with any questions before you go out and buy a fluorocarbon or a braid or whatever. You can call up and say, this is what I want to do. What do you think? And we'll tell you what we do. We'll go over this with you and we'll dial you in. But listen, don't give up on monofilament. Keep throwing your copolymers. Jump in head first on fluorocarbon and see what it's all about. And that braid is going to help you out in a lot of situations. And now you know when you want to use it. So stick with that. And that's pretty much a wrap on line.
Is that your line?
Yeah. No, my line was the first one. Lines. And I'm not talking about the ones at the Chick-fil-A.
My God. I like the way you spelled filet. Fillet.
That was awesome.
So, yeah.
I mean, that's poetry.
That's a line show. It begs a ton of questions. And again, as to reiterate what Mike says, when you're on the SFT worldwide website and you're confused, call us.
Yeah.
Hey George, what's that absolutely awesome reel that you're holding up right
This
there?
is
real porn.
This is real porn.
Kids, look away.
You've been here for bait porn. This is real porn. So, I mean, it's not very often that our highlight reel is $729.99, but it's that happening tonight.
Yeah, we had to show that.
Because
we can.
This is the new Steez CT.
What are they changing that sucker?
SVTW.
CT.
So it's the Steez.
Yep. CT. Compact.
Charlie Thomas.
Compact.
SV.
Yep.
Which is the cast control system.
Right.
TW.
Which is the
T-wing. Which, by the way, on this reel, this is a unique T-wing built for this reel because it's a smaller frame. Right. This is a 70 size reel.
That's that new.
So the
Smalley Charlie.
Yeah. So the hip thing to talk about these days is BFS, which stands for Bait Finesse System. So this is in essence a BFS reel.
In the Steez version.
It's a shallow spool. I mean, for example, it's 90 yards of 10-pound test.
Super light.
Right?
I was going to say that reel looks light. Really light.
Super light.
Well, it's a magnesium frame.
George is holding on to it so it doesn't float away.
Yeah.
That's why he's holding it.
I'm holding it down.
Hold it down.
I'm holding it down. It's a magnesium frame and a magnesium side plate. And if you didn't know the definition of magnesium in Chinese, when Japanese, when you define magnesium, it means add 100. Okay, so you got a frame and a side plate, that's add 200. And what that does is it makes it super light.
Lots of bearings in that sucker.
Yeah, so you have 2 corrosion resistant bearings.
Very important.
Okay. Corrosion resistant bearings are located where you're most likely to get water intrusion. So your spool shaft and your main, what do you call it? Cast control.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do all corrosion resistant bearings because there's very few people who are going to take a 70 size reel saltwater fishing. Correct? And then you have another 10 high grade stainless bearings. And then, of course, your anti-reverse is a roller bearing. So 10 plus 12 is 2 plus 3 divided by 1, square root of 9. You end up with 13 bearings. Right?
Yep.
Dura aluminum G1 spool. So that's our lightest weight, freest floating spool. And then it's on a free floating shaft. So the spool shaft is not all the way through the reel. And I just wanted to tell you about the Steez 70. Better watch yourself there, Nick.
Look at Nick. He's freaking drooling.
I think one of them's going home.
Put your bib on, Nick. Good God, Nick. That thing looks good on there.
Also, in the new department,
wow,
Octafo has created some new colors for his OG Slim. He's got some cool colors like Brim, Coosa River Shad. Mike, why don't you go grab a couple of those for us? Brim, Coosa River Shad. He also came out with a smaller size, an OG4. And all those new colors are available in that 4 as well. And also, while we're on the topic of Rapala, we got another big shipment of DT8s in. So just to let you know that, because I'm telling you, I haven't seen a crankbait sell like a DT8 in a long time. I mean, they're leaving up out of here deep. Rains is in the house. Rains tungsten. This is the tungsten that the pros fish with. This is Primo tungsten. It's got a cool shape, very compact. It's got a liner in it. So there's actually a little like plastic liner inside there. So absolutely no frayage of your line. Yeah. Here's these new colors, Mike. So this is Brim. This is available in the OG6 and then the new little 4. Okay. This is the Coosa Crawl. I think this one right here is bad to the bone. Coosa Crawl. I don't know how they get crawl out of that. Here's the Copper Green Shad. This is what I called Ode to Rico. Ode to Rico.
Put that up with that, on top of that.
And then here's this little 4, which we showed you last week, and we're going to show it to you again because this is America and we can. 4 on the top, 6 on the bottom. They're in stock, baby, and they're hot. We got all the Rains in stock. We got the Rains drop shot weights in stock. Also,
DT8s.
Yeah, we went over all that.
Saying it again.
Also of interest.
Because we can.
New Shimano release that happened on the 21st that everybody's asking questions about. So, the X Pride question. Everybody wants to know what's up with X Pride. Here's the deal. There is a new version of X Pride coming out. They should be here by late March. Possibly before that, but I'm just going by what I'm told. We will be getting them, if not as soon as everyone in the country, before everyone in the country. Okay? There's a whole new line of X Pride. Basically, the same blank, mono Coke handle.
Yep, like they did Zodius.
And the Poison Adrena.
And the Poison Adrena.
And some new models. So we're going to go from a light little spinning rod all the way up to an 8-foot extra heavy swim bait rod. 2 3-7-6s, 2 3-7-11s, 7-7s, 7-3s, heavy, medium. I mean, you name it, it's coming out. Okay. We will have them all. Okay.
Sweet.
There is a very large shipment of Zodius that just hit, but check this out. There's a new Stella while we're on the topic of jewelry reels.
Brand new Stella.
There's a new Sahara.
Brand new Sahara. Beautiful reel.
Beautiful. The new Sahara is beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Sahara's probably more of a late April delivery. And we have a battle-tested Shimano Macbeth square bill. That's right.
Shimano Macbeth.
Your boy here got one.
Stole it.
A long time ago.
Stole it.
I got the Macbeth 54
I put on the
square, which is what you're seeing here.
Yeah.
Owner Zowire hooks. This color will not be available. They had crazy colors in the samples. It's basically like an old BB1 Bagley's. Very buoyant. There's a flat side. There's a wake. Picture this bait in a wake model.
Beautiful.
My God. There is a new couple of entries into the Flash Boost Technology World Series. There's a World Series popper.
That is sexy.
Bro, picture a Don Iovino splash it with the World Series Flash Boost technology.
Lord, those fish don't have a chance.
There's a World Series crankbait that runs to 10 foot. Okay, all those baits, every color, every size, every version, all these rods, all these reels, they're all on order. They're all due in. We got a ton of questions about this big launch that they did, which I don't really agree with launching stuff.
Who launched
2-3 months before you can get it.
Who did that?
Shimano.
What a bunch of whackers.
I don't know.
Bunch of
they mean jobs. Well.
Whack jobs.
And then last but not least, people, on a somber note, a lot of you reached out for our friend Doug Miller. And we're sorry to tell you, although he got your messages and it was very helpful, Doug didn't make it. So we're gonna go tomorrow, and we're gonna bury Doug, and COVID got him. So be careful, be safe, take care of yourself. Don't forget about this, this COVID deal, and our Bassin brother Doug. Maybe think a kind thought.
He was a Bassin brother, man. That guy fished crazy, man. He was just a hardcore freaking crazy fish loving son of a gun, and
he's a great guy, man. We loved him.
He's looking down on us, saying, "Go catch the big ones." All right, that's what he's saying for sure. We're gonna go see his family tomorrow, and go to his funeral, and we're gonna pass on all of our respects from you guys onto his family.
Yes.
So, thank you very much. I hope you guys got your questions answered on Fishing Line. I really do. I think it was a good show. I think we got it across. Thank you so much for stopping.
Yes.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us again for one more episode of Tackle Shop Live. And we'll be back next week. We got another great show. Hopefully we're going to get a guest for then. Smallmouth Saturday is on for you guys. And see this, you guys that hang on to the very end, you get the good information. Smallmouth Saturday, February 12th, right, George?
Mm-hmm.
February 12th, we have a big seminar tent. This is all about smallmouth. There's nothing else on this thing about smallmouth. We're going to talk about lake smallmouth. We're going to talk about river smallmouth. We're going to give great seminars. We're going to go over stuff. I'm inviting everybody that in the smallmouth world to come. I'm hoping to get all the guides here walking around and answering questions that anybody might have. All the smallmouth gurus that we know are going to be here. This is going to be a great time. We got a tent, heated tent for seminars. We have the Bass Bus for parking, so you don't have to worry about parking. We got everything you want. Please come to this. This is a huge deal. This is where you're gonna get the inside
be awesome.
information. It's gonna be a good time. So February 12th, Smallmouth Saturday is back. We had to skip it just like we did our Bass Fest, but it's back now, and we're going full speed on this mother.
Woo!
So until next time, we'll see you in another
Let's
edition
go.
of Tackle Shop Live. Thanks a lot for stopping by.
A sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down or when I am blue, I can't get enough. You make me happy, I feel so fine. Oh, how I wish that you were mine. I can't get enough. Soaked in sweat, with chills running down my neck. I'm going crazy from just the thought of you. A long blonde hair and your beautiful smile. Your sense of humor makes it all worthwhile. Don't make me wait.